Well, good morning, everybody. And how are you on this Saturday morning? It is the 29th day of November 2025. I'm Rick Tallent, your host. And yes, if you're watching by Facebook or YouTube, then or by WGC television, then you found out that we have a new picture up. And I'm going to start showing you some pictures this morning of something that's very exciting to me. And it should be exciting to everybody that's been waiting, because in 2018 I published this book, Ashes in the Rose Garden, and it is the first in a series of books, novels, that the next one in the series, I've been talking about it. Well, here it is. The War Brides is now published, and it is here, as well as its sequel, and that is Deception, Unequally Yoked, and Family Feuds. The Family Feuds. These three novels arrived yesterday, and guess what? I have them in my hands right here. They are actually here. They are actually published. These are not ebooks. These are actual printed books, and they're pretty good size. We had to reduce the print size a little bit in order to keep the production costs down. But boy, I tell you what, the War Brides is over 300 pages. So these are not small books. Deception is 230 pages. And the Family Feuds is over 300 pages. So these three books, are as big as Ashes in the Rose Garden. It's just that we had to reduce the top size just a little bit in order to cut the printing costs down. These four books make up a complete, well, not yet complete, but a set of four novels that are sequels, starting with Ashes in the Rose Garden, The War Brides, Deception, Unequally Yoked, and at this point, the latest one, The Family Feuds. And folks, I'm going to tell you right now, if you've read Ashes in the Rose Garden, you're going to want to get all three of my of these other, or four actually, because there's another one that I've published in the meantime called Building a Life. That is also kind of a side story to all of these. Folks, I'm telling you right now, the books are good. The people who have read them as a part of my editing process have come back and saying they are at least as good as Ashes in the Rose Garden. And I'm going to toot my own horn today, because this is going to be a commercial about my books. Let me just, I want to give you a rundown on this, because how can you write 5 novels? Because that's what that is, it's 5 novels, okay? How can you write 5 novels? Well, here's how it starts. And I'll give you a little bit of background into how I write. The way I write is very simple. I have an idea for a story. I have an idea of where I want it to go, how I want it to end. Just an idea. And I get an idea for a short story that could be chapter 1. And at that point, I begin to write. And I forgot to turn the music off. I'm sorry. At that point, I begin to write, and okay, let's go back and start all over. The novels are here, okay? The Family Feud, the latest in it, Deception, Unequally Yoked, The War Brides, and of course, Ashes in the Rose Garden, which was the story that started all these, and Building a Life, which is a side story that talks about it. These are all sequels and part of a continuing series of stories. Folks, they are here. And The books are here and ready to be ordered, ready for shipment. I hesitated to start taking orders ahead of time because, you know, things can happen. Okay. But for those of you that have read Ashes in the Rose Garden, I will tell you what the proofreaders have told me about the others. They are at least as good, if not better. And folks, that just blows my mind. But you know, writing is, to me, is fun. I enjoy it. And writing novels is storytelling. And let me just give you a little background on how I go about writing the novels. And I apologize for leaving the music on this morning. I'm going to make a change on this laptop that I use right now so that won't happen again. Okay, yeah, that's fixed now. So it'll play the intro one time and then quit. Too many buttons to push around here, I guess. Anyway, when you're doing your own engineering. Anyway, what happens is very simple, yet it becomes complex. I have an idea for a story. I have an idea of where I want it to go, and begin to write a short story that ends up being the first chapter. And from there, I don't outline it. There's no outline to it. I just begin to write the story, and it takes us on the journey. And that's what happened. Back a few years ago, back actually in 2016, shortly after I published, let's see, Finding Rhonda and my first novel of Friends and Family were published in 2014. And shortly after I published both of those, I had the idea for a story based in 1969. And the idea for the story was a young couple whose families have been feuding for decades. Her family, his family, and another family. Three families that the only thing they have in common is that they hate this one person whom they blame for all of their financial woes and their political woes. And it is none other than John Fletcher, the main character in Ashes in the Rose Garden. And the great uncle of one of the first characters in A Family Feud. Brother Alvin Key says he's reading Finding Rhonda right now. Let me know what you think about it. But he also says that Ashes in the Rose Garden is the #1 book. I appreciate that. The idea for the story was a young couple who had been secretly dating for all the way through since high school and all the way through college, and their families didn't know it, and they keep it secret, and they decide they're going to get married. And Uncle John warns them that, you know, one of the few people in Uncle John's family that has anything to do with him is this great nephew. And so Uncle John warns them it's going to be trouble. But they elope and get married, and then tragedy happens. And that tragedy is that Uncle John's nephew dies. And that's when the family finds out that the couple had just gotten married. And to complicate things further, the young widow, who had only been married a few weeks, is pregnant. Oh boy, you can imagine where it went from there. Well, the story of Uncle John and the background on Uncle John became so much a part of that story because I had to explain why these families in this little small town, this little small fictional town, hated each other so much. That the only way I could do that, I had already written about 300 pages when I decided to scrap the project, go back and write what became Ashes in the Rose Garden. Well, now, after Ashes in the Rose Garden was written and published, there was this huge gap between World War II and, or toward the end of World War II and 1969, which is where the original story was. So to bring everything up to date, here's what I had to do. I had to go from Ashes in the Rose Garden to the Family Feuds. And the only way to get there was to bring characters up to date. Well, Brother Al says, just don't read Ashes in the Rose Garden too fast. Read a little, let it soak in, then read it again. And I agree. Thank you. Thank you so much. That's the story. That's the real thing behind these novels. There's a lot that's in there. There's a lot that's hidden. There's a lot of story that if you just read them real fast, you're going to miss it. I've heard this from a number of people about Ashes in the Rose Garden, that they've gone back and reread it 2 and 3 times and caught things that they never saw before. So in order to bring it up to 1969 and bring the storyline up, I had an idea for the War Brides. And the War Brides includes characters from Ashes in the Rose Garden, including Uncle John and Ben and Leon and their daughter, Evelyn. And then there's another family that moves into town, and that brings in the second half of this book, or the first half of this book, which is introducing you to those characters. And the reason why those characters are so important is because the next book, bringing you up to the 1969 book, is Deception, Unequally Yoked, where the son of one of the characters, Dolores, in the War Brides, is now grown, and he gets involved with a young lady who is not very honest. Let's just put it that way. And it becomes a tragedy in his life and her life, a tragedy that, and at the end of the book, they have gone through some really serious things. Lots of things have happened, but yet, again, it's gonna surprise you. It's gonna be a shocker. Deception, Unequally Yoked, and one of the things that this book really emphasizes is making bad decisions in relationships and not being honest. Well, then that brings us up to the story of Connie, which is the name of the girl in the original 1969 story that started all of this, which at this point is then 3 novels and a total of 6, 7, 8, almost 900 pages. Well, this is the novel that started it all. And it's the story. It starts out with Connie and her boyfriend, who becomes her husband, is Jerry, and what happens in their life before they can tell their parents that they have committed the unpardonable sin and not only secretly dated but married each other, and how dare they get married to that family. There's 3 families in this town that are fighting each other, and the only thing they have in common is that they hate Uncle John, and they hate him enough that they will do anything. Once Jerry passes away and dies, Connie is left as a pregnant widow and penniless and without a job, and in a town where even her own family has rejected her. And it becomes a very serious story. And Uncle John, as you can imagine, does what Uncle John does in Ashes in the Rose Garden. He steps into the fray. And this book, The Family Feuds, and seriously, you have to read all of them to get to here, is over 300 pages. and it takes you up through that story and what happens with Connie. And guess what? She meets Bob. That is the four major story. That's the four stories. It's four books already in the series. There's a side story book that I published about 2 years ago called Building a Life, which takes in some of the characters, but it's also bringing in some additional characters that are relevant and important down the road. So, you know, as you begin to look at these, as you begin to read these books, and it's like what Brother Alvin Keys says, don't read Ashes in the Rose Garden too fast. Read it a little at a time. And the same thing goes for the rest of them in the series, because there's a lot of little gems hidden all the way through there. And many of them, I'll be honest with you, I did not realize were there until I went back to do my proofreading, because I will read these books. One reason why it takes me so long to publish a book is because as I'm reading, I will go back and reread the book to make sure everything makes sense to the point where I am in the story. And because these are intense stories, these have characters. Ashes in the Rose Garden has over 100 characters in it, but they all are interconnected. But as I'm rereading, I'm also editing and changing some things and getting everything the way that I feel like the story needs to be. But when I go back and begin to reread it, I begin to find little gems and little bits and pieces that become just amazing little hidden parts in the stories. And many times it's things that will cause you to think, or even cause you to remember things in your own life, decisions that you've made, and whether they've been good decisions or bad decisions, and how you ended up going down a particular road. These books have a very strong spiritual connotation to them, but they are not. Many of the Christian novels that I've read in years past, because I just quit reading them. I'll be honest with you. I quit reading most of them because it was like the main characters always walked around with their hands folded in prayer and nothing bad ever happened to them. And they always had all the right answers. They never made wrong decisions. And folks, y'all know as well as I do, that is not reality. I don't care how great a Christian you are. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to make bad decisions. And then you're going to have the consequences of those decisions that you have to deal with. Because life is full of decisions, and decisions have consequences. And that right there is the storyline running through every one of these. So that what you begin to see is how people trust the Lord in the small things. First of all, in the bigger things. And then as their life progresses, they begin to trust him in the smaller things. And folks, the storylines are deep. The storylines are consistent, but the storylines at the same time will cause your faith to grow. I know it sounds crazy, but this is what I've been told by so many who have read Ashes in the Rose Garden, but also those who pre-read the novels as part of the editing process. Life is not going to always be pretty, and neither is life in these novels. In fact, in Building a Life, which I've not talked much about, this young man, it's the story of a young man from Atlanta whose family owns a multi-million-dollar construction company. And he goes off to college, majors in construction management, and comes home expecting to continue what he had done since he was a young teenager, and that's to work for his family company. And his dad decides, no, go find you a job somewhere else. You don't have enough experience. When you work for somebody else for a few years and been successful, then come back, you can come back to the family company. Oh, and by the way, your allowance cuts off at the end of the month. Well, the young man has been raised mostly by his mother, who has raised him in church. And his dad and his dad's financier have already decided that they've got an arranged marriage for him. Boy, is that a disaster looking to happen. Well, he does find a job with one of his dad's competitors. And that's the story. That's the story of how the Lord leads this young man's life and brings him to the place where he makes some very serious decisions about his life and what he's going to do. And it's a love story. It's also a hate story because there's people he hates. But it's also a story about people making decisions and how those decisions affect your life down the road. Because the last chapter in this book will give you some surprises. But there again, if you've read Ashes in the Rose Garden, it may not be very many surprises. But The War Brides is actually 3 stories. It's the story of Evelyn, Ben and Leona Miller's daughter, who is introduced in Ashes in the Rose Garden. And Uncle John's in it as well, because he and Ben are the best of friends. But it's the story of her and her boyfriend and World War II starting and him going off to war. It's also the story of a poor family who's about to lose everything and how Ben steps in to help the family because the oldest son is Evelyn's boyfriend. And then the parallel story happening in Chattanooga, Tennessee, with a woman by the name of Dolores and how she meets a soldier and gets married, and their story. And after the war, they move in a block down the street from Ben, Leona, and Evelyn from Ashes in the Rose Garden, and become neighbors, raising their children together in a post-war atomic era. 20 years later, the son is her youngest, Dolores' youngest son is grown. And this is the story that sets everything up for the Family Feuds, where he is a major player in the Family Feuds. So as you begin to read the stories, these characters continue to grow, and the story continues to grow. In fact, I have probably another 10, to be conservative, books ready that I'm working on involving these same characters coming up through the present day. And it's all based in a fictional North Georgia community, little mountain town, and how things in that mountain town change between 1900 or 1919 when Ben first comes out of the army in Ashes in the Rose Garden, and the current day that we're in today, which will be when Connie in the Family Feuds, when her daughter, who was born in 1969, is now what? 50 years old? Yeah. So as the story progresses, another generation and things that happen in a small town. I grew up in a small town. I've lived in small towns. I've pastored in small towns. Oh, may the Lord have mercy upon you sometimes. You know, and I've seen so much happen in my 70 years of life that these stories have a basis in fact, but they're fun to read as you begin to see what happens over a period of time. How do you order these books? The books are $20 each plus $5 shipping. prepaid orders only at this point, because we're still trying to get everything set up with our bank here in Lafayette, so we can do electronic orders. But $20 each plus $5 shipping. And if you order 3 or more books, contact me and you'll save a little bit of money on the shipping. But typically it's $20 for the book plus $5 shipping, and we'll get them out to you just as fast as we can. And you can send those orders to Rick Tallent, P.O. Box 223, Lafayette, Georgia 30728. And I hope that the books are a blessing to you. It has been an adventure for me writing all of these, and to continue writing. And it has been a huge financial investment, because, folks, the cost of printing books has gone up substantially. And I wish I could sell them for a lot cheaper. But the quality of these books, those who have purchased Ashes in the Rose Garden know the quality of the books. They're not cheaply made books that are going to fall apart the first time you read them. And 10 years down the road, the paper's not just going to start falling apart like these little cheap dime store novels printed on newsprint. These are printed on good paper, and a good publishing house has printed them, and they've done a really good job. But it's expensive to publish books. I wish I could sell them for a lot cheaper, but I can't. So $20 a piece for each of the books. And if you have any questions, email me or contact me through social media, or even give me a call. My phone number is on the Facebook page. It's 409-670-3656. Same phone number I've had for over 20 years. So they're here. They're ready for Christmas, and we'll get them out just as fast as the orders come in. And I can assure you that I have plenty of copies here available, and we will get them out as soon as the orders come in. So there you are. Here's the commercial for today. It's time to start reading and ordering books. If you don't have it already, Ashes in the Rose Garden, The War Brides, Deception, Unequally Yoked, The Family Feuds, and Building a Life. So there's 5 books. 4 of them are $20. Building a Life is $15. So I can probably ship them, all of them, for $10. So if you want all of them, $105. Let's see. I'm sorry. Yeah. All of them, $105 for all 5 of the books, all 5 of them. And if you already have Ashes, then you can give it away to someone for Christmas. Thank you, folks, for letting me share my joy of getting my books published and of having them here and available. And as always, go with God, because He has already gone before you and prepared the way. He is your rear guard. And my friend, I can guarantee you that no matter what happens, Jesus will always be there by your side. May the Lord bless you, is my prayer.